It's 2 a.m. The house is quiet. Everyone you love is asleep. And somewhere, in a wall, behind an appliance, inside a vent you haven't thought about in years, something is happening. Slowly, silently. And by the time anyone notices, it may already be too late. This video isn't about fear. It's about something far more interesting than fear. It's about why this keeps happening to careful people in ordinary homes and what a single quiet habit can do to change it. Stay with me, because the answer is not what most people expect. Here's the thing that most people get wrong about house fires. They imagine it starts dramatically, a forgotten candle, a grease fire that explodes out of nowhere. But that's almost never the reality. The moment that starts a house fire almost never happens at 2 a.m. It happened at 9 p.m., at 7, maybe even at 5 in the afternoon while dinner was on the stove and the kids were doing homework. You were awake, fully conscious, right there in the house, and you still couldn't have known. I'll explain exactly why in a few minutes. But first, let me share something that quietly shifted how fire investigators understand this problem. In 2021, the National Fire Protection Association published a comprehensive report analyzing residential fire patterns across the United States. 5 years of data, thousands of incidents, and what they found genuinely surprised researchers. The highest number of fires don't start at night. More fires actually ignite during the day, when people are cooking, using appliances, moving around the house. But the fires that kill people? Those happen between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m., nearly 60% of all home fire fatalities, packed into those 7 hours. Not because more fires start then, because of what happens when a fire starts and no one is awake to notice it. That gap between ignition and awareness is where most tragedies live. And understanding why that gap exists changes everything. Think about last night, just last night. You made dinner, you watched something, you scrolled your phone on the couch, and at some point you got up, turned off the lights, and went to bed. Maybe the dryer was still running. You figured it'd be done by the time you fell asleep. Maybe a candle had been blown out, but the wax was still warm and the wick still glowing faintly orange.
Maybe the power strip under the couch, the one that's been there for 3 years, plugged into 6 different things, was doing what it always does. You didn't think twice. None of us do, because we've done those exact things dozens, maybe hundreds of times, and nothing ever happened. Here's the thing though, that's not evidence of safety. That's what psychologists call a near-miss pattern. Every uneventful night quietly teaches your brain, this is fine, this is normal, nothing to check. And that brings me to something I want you to really hear. There's a cognitive pattern called normalcy bias, and it is, without exaggeration, more dangerous than a faulty smoke detector. I'll come back to it, but first, let's talk about what fire actually needs. Because most people think they understand this, and most people are only half right. Fire needs 3 things. You probably learned this in school: fuel, oxygen, heat. Simple, right? Here's what they didn't teach you. At night, when the house is quiet, everyone is asleep, and nothing seems to be happening, your home becomes almost perfectly engineered to give a fire all 3. Fuel is everywhere: fabric, insulation inside your walls, the wooden framing behind the drywall, paper, cardboard, the lint that's been slowly accumulating in the dryer vent for the past 18 months. Oxygen moves through every gap under a door, every HVAC vent, every slightly cracked window. And heat? Heat is the sneaky one, because the heat source is almost never dramatic. It's not a roaring flame you forgot about. It's a phone charger that's been plugged in for 6 years, slowly degrading from the inside. It's a dryer vent, clogged with lint, that reaches ignition temperature somewhere around 2 in the morning, while the machine runs its final cycle and everyone sleeps. These aren't freak accidents, they're processes. Slow, patient, invisible processes. And they do their most dangerous work when the house is dark and no one is watching. I want you to do something for a moment. Picture your house, not a dramatic version of it, just your actual home. The kitchen where you made dinner this week, the hallway with the small nightlight so nobody trips, the room where your kids sleep, the way they look when they're out cold, completely peaceful. Now hold that image and consider that somewhere in that house, right now while you're watching this, there may be heat building in a place you've never once thought to look. I'm not saying that to frighten you. I'm saying it because it's exactly what fire investigators carry with them when they walk into an aftermath. Not anger, not disbelief, sadness. A quiet, heavy sadness, because in nearly every case, the investigation reaches the same conclusion.
This was preventable. Not by luck, not by some complicated system, by knowledge, and by one small habit. So why don't more people have that habit? Why do millions of thoughtful, careful, deeply loving people go to bed every night without checking the things that matter most? This is where normalcy bias becomes the real story. Normalcy bias is what happens when your brain interprets the absence of past danger as proof of future safety. You've run the dryer overnight 40 times. Nothing happened. Your brain files it. Safe. It's not carelessness, it's not negligence. It's your brain operating exactly as designed, conserving mental energy by building assumptions from experience. The problem is that brains are much better at tracking what has happened than calculating what could happen. A 2019 study published in the journal Risk Analysis found something striking. People significantly and consistently underestimate risk in familiar environments. Not unfamiliar ones, familiar ones. The more comfortable and known a place feels, the less your brain stays alert inside it. Your home is the most familiar place you'll ever be, which means your threat detection system is at its absolute quietest there. That's not a flaw in your character, it's a feature of human cognition that, in this one specific context, becomes a liability. The good news? Once you know it's happening, you can work around it. Here's the detail that tends to make people go quiet. In most fatal house fires, the smoke detector did go off. The alarm worked perfectly. People still didn't make it out. Research from the Federal Emergency Management Agency shows that once a residential fire becomes life-threatening, the average window to escape is between 1 and 3 minutes. 1 to 3 minutes. From the moment the alarm wakes you, from the moment you orient yourself, remember where the kids are, find the door, check if it's hot, and move. That's the window. It doesn't mean survival is impossible. Thousands of people escape every year. But it means the outcome is almost never decided during the fire. It's decided in the hours before it, in what was left on, in what was checked, in whether the path to a door was clear. So now you understand the full picture. During the day, fires have witnesses. Someone smells something odd. Someone sees a flicker. Someone hears a sound and goes to investigate. At night, fires have silence. They move through wall cavities. They travel up through insulation in the attic. They spread through the spaces between things, the gaps we never open, never inspect, never even consider. By the time the alarm goes off, the fire has often been growing for 20, 30, sometimes 40 minutes. It started in the lint trap. It moved into the wall. It found the ceiling joist. It reached the hallway outside your bedroom. That's why the data looks the way it does. That's why those 7 nighttime hours carry such a disproportionate share of loss. It's not randomness. It's not bad luck. It's physics and human psychology meeting each other in the dark. There's a practice that fire safety researchers refer to as a pre-sleep audit. It sounds technical. It isn't. It takes about 90 seconds.
Before bed, just once, on your way to the bedroom, you walk through the main rooms of your home. Not anxiously, not with a clipboard, just present, just noticing. Is the stove off? Fully off, not just turned down? Is anything plugged in that doesn't need to be tonight? Has the dryer finished its cycle? Are candles completely out, not just blown, but cold? Are space heaters unplugged? That's the whole thing. 90 seconds. A 2020 study published in the Journal of Safety Research found that households with consistent pre-sleep routines that included basic appliance checks showed meaningfully lower rates of nighttime fire incidents across a 3-year observation window. Not because the checklist was sophisticated, because the habit existed, because someone in that home decided, consciously, deliberately, that the people inside were worth 90 seconds before the lights went out. I want to stay here for just a moment. We spend enormous energy protecting the people we love. Seatbelts every time, sunscreen before the beach, holding their hand crossing the street before they're old enough to do it alone. We are, at our core, wired for protection. But somehow, the space where we live, the place we return to every single day, the rooms that hold our whole lives, that's the place we guard the least. Not because we don't love it, because we love it so completely that it never feels like somewhere we need to think about. Home is where you finally stop being on guard, and that's exactly what makes it vulnerable. Maybe this was never really about fire statistics. Maybe it's about attention. About the quiet, deeply unglamorous act of caring for the place that holds everything that matters to you. The coffee mug on the counter from this morning, the drawings on the refrigerator that you keep saying you'll frame, the particular way light comes through the hallway window at 7 a.m. 90 seconds. That's the distance between all of that and losing it. Not because the world is cruel, but because it's precious, and precious things deserve to be tended. The house is still. It's 2 a.m., and tonight, you checked. That's not a small thing. That's love in its quietest form.